Howdy, howdy, this is Mr. Potter. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about setting our turtle's position and also dealing with turning the pen on and off so that we can move the turtle without making a drawing. And this way we can move the turtle to a new location and kind of make a new drawing at that new location. So we're going to jump to sculpt.org and get started. So we got the default code here. We're going to get rid of all of it except for the import statement and constructing our turtle. So we've imported from the turtle library. We've constructed a turtle called T, and I want to do a few things here. First thing I want to do is go ahead and set the turtle's color. We talked about this last time, so we can do t.color, and inside this string we're going to put a hex code. So I'm going to call it 333399. So what I've got here is I've got a little bit of red, a little bit of green, and blue. This is kind of a darker color. This is almost going to be like an indigo, maybe like almost a cobalt blue or something like that. Really dark blue. I like this color. The first thing I want to talk about is this idea of pen up. And so when I do this command, what's going to happen is this raises the pen, so no marks are made. And what this allows me to do is this allows me to move the turtle without making a tracing line behind it. So I can actually move the turtle to a new location. I just have to remember to do pen down to put the pen back down so it starts tracing again. So we've got pen up and pen down as two different commands that we can do here. Another thing, we talked about this last time, but we can set the speed of our turtle. And I kind of want to do this fast. I want to do the maneuvering of my turtle into position pretty fast. The actual drawing we can do kind of slow, but we're going to maneuver the turtle into its new starting position pretty fast. So I'm setting the speed to 10. Remember that speed goes from 1 being slow to 10 being fast. And there's a little hidden setting. If you actually turn it to 0, it actually goes as fast as possible. The 10 here, that's the fastest, that's really the second fastest speed. If you give it a 0, it goes faster than 1. Seems a little quirky, but I just thought I'd put that out there. So I'm setting the speed to 10, and then I'm going to set its x position, so set x, and I'm going to set the x position to negative 180. And the reason I'm doing that is because when we actually get our diagram down here, 0, 0's right here. This is the middle where our turtle normally starts. I want to move it to negative 180, which is pretty close to the left border of what we're going to see. So what this does is it sets the x coordinate to the left border of the screen, or near the left border of the screen. And I want to do something similar with set y. I'm going to set y to 100, and so this is going to move it up into the second quadrant of the graphics region. So we're going to go to set the y coordinate to near the top of the screen, or of the canvas, actually, is what I want to call it here. I don't really want to call it the screen, I want to call it the canvas. And then once I've done that, let's just go ahead and see what this does. So I'm going to run this, and you can see what happened. It moved very quickly up here. Let me run that again, you can see how quick that happens. So remember, it's going to start around here. And if I click run, it does very quickly, goes to the x and goes to the y. Notice that it moved horizontally till its x coordinate was set, then it moved vertically until its y coordinate was set. And so what we've done here, this is all set up. In other words, I'm setting up my turtle for the actions we're going to do. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my turtle going. So I'm going to do t.speed, and I'm going to set the speed back to 1. Because it is a turtle, turtle should go slow. So now I'm ready to do stuff. And so what I actually want to do is I want to do some dashed lines. So in other words, I'm going to draw a little, pick the pen up, draw a little, put the pen down, draw a little, put the pen up, draw a little, put the pen down. And we talked a little bit about loops in the previous couple of videos when we talked about the for each loop. So what I want to do is I want to say for index in range, and this time I don't want to use a list. I just want to say, hey, I want to do this 8 times. So what this does is this repeats the following code 8 times. And so the question is, how do I indicate what code should be following? And the way we do that is white space. We actually do some spaces in here. And I'm sorry, that should be a colon, not a semicolon. Let me fix that. Colon. So when I do this, notice when I hit enter, it's going to set me up here right below the letter I in index. And so this is where I'm going to start typing my code. And any code that's kind of indented this 4 spaces is going to be repeated. And anything that starts off aligned with this first space is only going to be run once. So it's going to do this t.color once, t.penup, t.speed, t.setx, t.sety, t.speed. It's going to do all of this stuff once. And then everything inside here, it's going to do 8 times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to do t.pendown. And so this is going to set my pen back down, so it's going to start tracing again. And then I'm going to do t.forward. I'm only going to go forward 20 pixels and then immediately pick my pen up and go forward again. So if I run this program the way it is, it's going to move my turtle to the position, and notice it's drawing 20 pixels on, 20 pixels off, 20 pixels on, 20 pixels off. So it's making this dashed line, and you can see I've got 8 segments here. Each one of these segments is 20 pixels long, and each one of these segments has a 20 pixel gap between them. I'm repeating this segment of code. Put the pen down and draw, then put the pen up and draw. I'm repeating it 8 times because of this 4 index in range. So I want to do something else again. So I'm going to go ahead and let's move it back. This is code I don't want to repeat, so I'm going to go ahead and do t.speed to 10. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this turtle and I'm going to move it back over here to the left side of the screen again to do something again. So I'm going to t.penup. Actually, I don't need to do t.penup because the last thing we did was set the pen up. That's why there's this space here. So all we can do is just do t dot, and I can actually do something called setposition. And what this does is allows me to do both the x and y at the same time. So I don't have to do a set x and a set y. In other words, my turtle's not going to move horizontally and then vertically like it did to get to the original starting position for this drawing. It's actually going to move diagonally to our new starting position. And I like that x coordinate, -180. I'm going to change my y coordinate back to 0, which means it's going to be kind of towards the left middle part of our screen. And then we're going to set our speed back to 1. And I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to say t.pensize to 10. And one of the things you'll notice is that these drawings that we made here, they're all 1 pixel wide. So when I do this next drawing down here, the drawing is going to be 10 pixels wide. So what we've talked about so far, we've talked about, let me change that speed back to 1. My set position, this sets both the x and y coordinates. And this t.pensize changes the width of the traced path. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this repeated code that we had here, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it. So I'm going to do the same thing we did, tracing that pen up and pen down 20 pixels at a time. The difference here is this line right here, this idea that we're setting our pen size to 10. In other words, we're drawing a thicker line. So let's run this. So it moves immediately and then moves back to its turtle speed. And then after it's done with this 8th segment, you're going to see it move diagonally down here, and it's making these thicker lines. So these thicker lines are caused by this pen size being 10. If I were to go up here and change this pen size to 25, then I'm going to see those lines being even thicker. So here I'm drawing the 1 pixel thick lines, and then when I move to the second position, notice how thick these lines are. They're 25 pixels thick. As a matter of fact, the 25 pixels thick that I'm drawing here, they're actually overlapping in this 20 pixel gap. So I think if I actually made that a 20, then, a 20, then those line segments would just barely touch at the endpoints. So I'm kind of making these almost sausage-shaped line segments when I do the second set of line segments. You can see there they're barely touching at each of these little intersections because we're basically drawing a circle. And these points that we're drawing, these line segments that we're drawing, are so big they pretty much obscure our turtle. So that means I can always change the shape of my turtle. We talked about how we could do that using t.shape to change the shape. All I would do is I put turtle in quotes, or I could put triangle in quotes, just to kind of give it a little bit more visibility when it's drawing these really thick shapes. But the purpose of today's video was to talk about how to set our position, which we talked about doing here on lines 8 and 9 of our code. We talked about how we could set the x and y coordinates independently of each other, or on line 17 of our code where we set the position of our turtle explicitly by giving it both an x and y coordinate. In other words, moving diagonally the closest way we can to that x and y coordinate. We also talked about pin up and pin down, which allows our turtle to move. Notice that we made disconnected lines here. These lines don't connect with each other. And so we did that using the pin up and pin down alternating. We draw with pin down and we pass over space with our pin up. And then finally we had our, on line 19, we had our pensize, which changed the thickness of how we were drawing. I changed it to 20 pixels. It starts off by drawing 1 pixel, and this allows us to draw with either fine strokes or broad strokes. So we're going to continue with this idea of maneuvering in Python using this turtle graphics, but I do appreciate you watching. Once again, this is Mr. Potter. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.